You did everything right. You built the life you were supposed to. A good job, a stable relationship, maybe even a little success. But if you're honest, you still feel empty inside. Not every moment, not every day, but there's a heaviness, like something important is missing, and you can't quite name it. If that sounds like you, this video might change how you see everything. Because what you're feeling isn't a mystery. It's the result of 5 invisible wounds, patterns that so many women carry without realizing it. In the next few minutes, you'll learn what they are and how to finally begin healing them. Chapter 1. The Overachiever Wound. You grew up in a world where doing meant being, where being helpful meant being wanted, where being impressive meant being seen. It started early. You noticed how adults lit up when you performed well, how they praised your achievements but overlooked your emotions. So you adapted. You learned to become what others rewarded: smart, capable, reliable. This is how the overachiever wound forms. Not because you were arrogant, not because you craved power, but because you were a child trying to secure love. Love became conditional, on grades, on good behavior, on making life easier for everyone else. And soon the real you, the messy, emotional, uncertain you, was hidden away. You became the girl who didn't need much, the girl who helped everyone else, the girl who succeeded. And it worked. You got approval. You fit in. But you also got used to earning your place in the world. So when things slow down, when there's no task, no goal, no one to impress, you feel uneasy. You feel empty. This is what no one tells high-achieving women. Excellence doesn't fill the hole of unworthiness. It distracts from it. It gives you applause, but not connection. Security, but not peace. Have you ever reached a goal and felt nothing? Finished a project, landed the job, got the recognition, only to feel flat inside? That's the wound speaking. It says, keep going, don't stop, do more, then you'll feel whole. But wholeness doesn't come after more doing. It comes after remembering who you are without the doing. You are not your accomplishments. You are not your output. You are not your usefulness. You are worthy even when you rest, especially when you rest. And yes, this may feel deeply uncomfortable at first, because when your identity has been built on achievement, stillness can feel like death. But that discomfort, it's not failure. It's the doorway home. Start by noticing the urge to perform. When you say yes too quickly, when you take on too much, when you're afraid to let someone down. Pause. Breathe. Ask, if I didn't have to earn love right now, what would I choose? You may find your answer is simple. Less, softer, quieter. In the next chapter, we'll look at the mask many women wear, one that looks like strength, but hides profound self-abandonment. Chapter 2. The Mask of Capability. If this video touched something in you, don't just scroll past it. Subscribe to her inner mirror and begin your journey to emotional freedom. You're the one everyone counts on. At work, at home, in your relationships. You carry the conversations, the emotions, the responsibilities, and you do it well. You're efficient, thoughtful, on top of things. So much so that most people don't even think to ask how you're doing, because you always seem fine. But here's the part they don't see. You've built a life around being capable. Not because it's always true, but because you learned that being capable is safer than being vulnerable. Somewhere along the way, you got the message that falling apart wasn't allowed, that emotions made people uncomfortable, that asking for help made you look weak, that needing support would make you a burden. So you put on the mask that says, "I've got this," even when you don't. You keep smiling when you're hurting. You keep giving when you're empty. You keep showing up, even when your body is begging for rest. And the mask becomes so familiar that even you forget it's there. But here's the danger. The longer you wear the mask, the lonelier you become. Because people can't love the real you, only the version you perform. And deep down, you might start to wonder, if I stopped being useful, would they still want me around? That fear is what keeps the mask glued on. You may even feel guilt just thinking about taking it off, as if softening, slowing down, saying no would make you less valuable. But your value has never been in your performance. It's in your presence. And presence requires honesty, with yourself first. So let's get honest. You're tired. Not just physically, but emotionally. Tired of managing everyone's expectations. Tired of pretending that being fine is enough. Tired of being the strong one, the stable one, the one who never needs anything. What would happen if you stopped? If you cried when you needed to? If you asked for support before reaching a breaking point? If you said, "I'm not okay today"? You might lose some people, but those aren't your people. The ones who truly see you, who truly care for you, they'll stay. And you'll be loved not for what you do, but for who you are. The first step in taking off the mask is simple, but brave. Let someone in. Not everyone, just one person. Let them see behind the "I'm fine." Let them witness your humanness. You don't have to shatter the mask overnight, but every moment of honesty, every breath of softness, is a crack in the armor. And through those cracks, something beautiful happens. You begin to feel real. Again. Chapter 3. The Forgotten Inner Child. There's a part of you that remembers everything. Not with words, but with feeling. She remembers how it felt to be ignored, to be scolded for being too emotional, to shrink herself so others would feel comfortable. That part of you is your inner child, and she's still there. Not in a childish way, but in the emotional foundation of who you are. She carries every unmet need, every swallowed cry, every moment when being yourself didn't feel safe. Maybe you learned to be the good girl, the polite one, the achiever, the peacemaker. You figured out how to avoid conflict, how to please others, how to disappear when it got tense. It made you adaptable, but it also made you abandon yourself. This is the third wound. You disconnected from the part of you that once felt everything deeply, because feeling deeply became dangerous. You see, children don't stop loving their caregivers when their needs aren't met. They stop loving themselves. They internalize the pain. If I'm too much, I won't be loved. If I want too much, I'll be left. If I speak up, I'll be punished. So you became less loud, less needy, less emotional. You grew up fast. You got strong. And the little girl in you learned to stay quiet, deep inside your chest. But she never went away. She shows up when you overreact to something small, when you feel abandoned by silence, when you crave reassurance, not because you're weak, but because that child inside you never got what she needed. And now, she's asking for your attention, not through words, but through that hollow feeling in your chest, through the ache you can't explain, through the way you always feel like something's missing, even when nothing is. She doesn't need you to fix her. She needs you to see her, to listen, to stop running. What did she need that she didn't get? Affection? Safety? Freedom to feel? And what would it mean to give her a little of that now? To pause, to breathe, to say, I see you. You didn't deserve that. You're safe now. This isn't regression, it's integration. The woman you are today is strong enough to hold the girl you were. And when you begin to care for her, something softens. The anxiety loosens. The urgency fades. You no longer live from a place of lack, but from a place of love. Next, when your inner child goes unseen for too long, your body begins to carry the grief she was never allowed to express. In Chapter 4, we'll explore how your body speaks what your mouth never could. Chapter 4. The body remembers what you silenced. You say you're just tired, but it's not the kind of tired that sleep fixes. It's the kind of tired that lives in your bones. You find yourself sighing for no reason. Your shoulders tense. Your chest feels tight. Sometimes your stomach flips for no clear cause. This isn't weakness. It's memory. When emotions are silenced, the body stores the truth. All the tears you didn't cry. All the words you swallowed. All the moments you pushed through when you needed to fall apart. Your body became a vault for everything you weren't allowed to feel. The frustration, the grief, the loneliness. You may not remember the moment you shut those feelings down, but your nervous system does. That chronic tension in your jaw, the fatigue you can't explain, the way your chest tightens when someone raises their voice. That's your body whispering, something still hurts. This is the fourth wound, emotional suppression that turns into physical depletion. Women are taught to be calm, pleasant, composed, to be grateful, to keep the peace. But peace without expression isn't peace at all. It's internal war. And eventually, the body will wave the white flag. That's when the symptoms begin. Not because something is wrong with you, but because something has gone unheard for too long. You don't need to fight your body. You need to listen to her. She's not betraying you. She's begging for release. She's carrying what your voice couldn't say. So let her speak. Let her tremble. Let her sweat. Let her cry. Movement, sound, stillness, breath. These are not indulgences. They're medicine. You don't need to understand every trauma to begin healing. You just need to create safety in your body again. Not through control, but through compassion. Try this. The next time you feel anxious or heavy, don't distract yourself. Pause. Place a hand on your heart and ask, what am I holding right now that I was never allowed to feel? You may not get an answer in words, but you'll feel it in the softening, in the breath you didn't know you were holding, in the tear that rises uninvited, but welcome. This is what it means to return to your body, to trust her, to partner with her, not as a thing to manage, but as the home you were born into. In the next chapter, we'll meet the most silent wound of all. Chapter 5. The Shapeshifter Syndrome. You've been whoever you needed to be, In every room, every role, every relationship. At work you're focused, collected, competent. With friends you're warm, funny, the good listener. In love you become what they want, soft, strong, mysterious, supportive. You adapt, you read people, you mold. But somewhere along the way, you forgot who you are. This is the fifth wound, the belief that your true self is too much or not enough. So you wear masks, adjust your shape, and hope no one sees how lost you feel inside. It's not your fault. You learned to survive this way. Maybe you had a parent with strong expectations. Maybe you had to keep the peace to avoid conflict. Maybe you were rewarded for being low maintenance, flexible, pleasant. So you became a master of emotional editing. You learned to hide anger, dim joy, soften sadness, to feel out the vibe of a room and become what it needed, often before anyone even asked. But here's the cost. You feel unknown, and not just by others, by yourself. When you live your life as a mirror, you reflect everyone but forget your own reflection. And when you don't know who you are, decisions feel heavy, boundaries feel confusing, desires feel like a foreign language. You wonder, do I even have a real self? Or am I just a collection of roles I've played for other people? The answer is, you do have a self. She's still in there. She's the one who gets excited about strange things, the one who feels a pull towards certain places, ideas, people, without explanation. The one who gets louder when you're alone and quieter when you're performing. She's not gone. She's just buried under years of adaptation. So how do you return to her? You begin by noticing when you're shape-shifting, when you laugh at things that don't feel funny, when you agree just to avoid conflict, when you feel drained after social interactions but don't know why. Then, gently, you pause. You ask yourself, what would I say or do right now if I didn't have to be liked? You may not act on the answer right away. That's okay. Awareness is the first crack in the mask. From there, you practice small acts of self-honoring, wearing what feels good, not what flatters, saying no when you mean it, letting silence sit instead of filling it. Every time you choose authenticity over approval, you heal, not just for yourself, but for the little girl who first believed she had to perform to be loved. Next, in Chapter 6, we shift toward healing, how to stop abandoning yourself and start living in alignment with who you really are. Chapter 6. The first act of coming home. There's a moment in every woman's life when she realizes, I've built a life that looks good, but doesn't feel true. Maybe it's subtle. A conversation that leaves you hollow. A quiet weekend that feels like a warning. The success that brings admiration, but no joy. You can't explain it logically, but something inside whispers, this isn't it. This moment is not a breakdown. It's a breakthrough. And it usually arrives after years of self-abandonment. You've spent your life tuning into others, their needs, their moods, their expectations. You've become fluent in how to belong, but lost touch with how to belong to yourself. This is the turning point, the moment where the pain of staying disconnected becomes greater than the fear of coming back. But how do you return to a self you've long forgotten? Not by fixing, not by forcing, but by listening. The first act of coming home is noticing when you're leaving yourself. Every time you silence your truth to keep the peace. Every time you say yes when your body screams no. Every time you minimize your needs to make others comfortable. Start here. At the end of each day, ask yourself gently, where did I disappear today? Not to judge, not to punish, but to witness, to reconnect. You may find small moments. You laughed when something hurt. You complimented someone who crossed your boundary. You pushed through exhaustion because rest felt selfish. These are invitations, not failures, not signs that you're broken, but signals that you're ready to live differently. And living differently doesn't mean quitting your job or changing your life overnight. It starts inside, with one honest no. One moment of stillness instead of scrolling. One breath before answering a message that tugs at your energy. One walk without your phone. One meal eaten slowly, without multitasking. These tiny acts send a loud message to your nervous system. I'm here. I'm listening. I'm not abandoning you anymore. Over time, that presence becomes safety, and that safety becomes identity. Not the false identity built from roles and approval, but the one rooted in self-trust. You're not rebuilding yourself. You're remembering her, the version of you who existed before the world told you who to be. Next, in Chapter 7, we'll explore how to build a life that nourishes your truth instead of draining it, and how to protect your peace with love, not fear. Chapter 7. Building a life that doesn't hurt to live. You were never meant to survive your life. You were meant to live it. But somewhere along the way, surviving became normal. You wake up with dread, push through the day, collapse at night, and call it success because the boxes are checked. This isn't living, it's performing, and your soul knows the difference. So how do you begin to build a life that feels like yours, not just one that impresses others? You start with honesty. Not dramatic, burn-it-all-down honesty, but quiet, courageous truth-telling, to yourself first. Ask, what parts of my life feel nourishing? What parts feel like constant negotiation? What drains me, even if it looks good from the outside? It might be a job that looks perfect on LinkedIn, but feels dead inside. A friendship built on one-sided giving. A relationship where you're always managing, never resting. It's hard to admit, because so much of your identity has been built on these things, but you're allowed to outgrow what you once begged for, and you're allowed to design again. This time, based on how it feels, not just how it looks. Try this. Make a list of what feels like home in your life. Not obligations, not status symbols, moments, people, sensations, a slow morning, a belly laugh, a conversation where you don't have to explain yourself. Now make a list of what feels like pretending, and ask yourself, what would it take to move 5% closer to what's true? Not perfection, not escape, just a little more truth, a little less pretending. That's how you protect your peace, not by avoiding conflict, but by honoring your capacity, not by pleasing everyone, but by choosing yourself without guilt. You don't need to explain your boundaries to people who benefit from you having none. You don't need to be understood to be valid. You don't need to be exhausted to be valuable. You're not here to be admired. You're here to feel alive. And aliveness doesn't always look exciting. Sometimes it's quiet, spacious, undramatic, but it never feels like tension in your chest. It never feels like bracing yourself to get through the day. It feels like peace. And peace is not boring, it's revolutionary. In the next chapter, we'll talk about what happens when you stop striving and let yourself receive, how softness becomes strength and presence becomes power. Chapter 8. Letting yourself receive. You've always been the giver. You anticipate needs before they're spoken. You hold space, solve problems. You say, I'm fine so others don't worry. But deep down, you're starving. Not for attention, but for permission. permission to rest, to receive, to stop carrying it all. This is the next step in your healing, allowing yourself to be poured into, not just poured out. But it's not easy, is it? Because somewhere inside, a voice whispers, if I stop giving, will they still love me? If I receive, am I selfish? If I need too much, will they leave? So you keep overfunctioning. You stay low maintenance. You tell yourself it's easier this way. But here's the truth. You were never meant to live off scraps of care. You were never meant to feel guilty for having needs. You were never meant to only feel safe when you're useful. This is the wound that confuses love with labor, and it leads to burnout, not just physically, but emotionally. Because without the ability to receive, love becomes a transaction, a performance, a negotiation, and the soul withers in that environment. So how do you change this? You begin with small acts of allowing. Let someone hold the door for you without apologizing. Let someone offer support without deflecting. Let yourself cry in front of someone without explaining. At first, it feels wrong, exposed, uncomfortable. But healing always does, because it challenges your oldest survival strategy. And over time, your body starts to trust again. Not just that others can show up for you, but that you believe you're worthy of being shown up for. Practice saying thank you instead of you didn't have to. Practice letting someone care for you without rushing to reciprocate. Practice sitting in your need without shrinking from it. You don't have to earn softness. You don't have to justify your humanity. You don't have to become deserving. You already are. Receiving is not passive, it's powerful, because it says, I'm safe enough to open, I'm worthy enough to rest. I'm no longer performing to be loved, I'm letting love land. And when you finally let love in, without fear, without apology, you become whole again. In the final chapter, we'll bring everything together, so you can leave this video not just with insight, but with a new way of being. Chapter 9. Returning to yourself. You've spent years becoming capable, becoming strong, becoming what others needed. But beneath all that becoming, you were always there, quiet, waiting, intact. You were never broken, just buried. Beneath roles, expectations, and silent agreements you never consciously made. Now, you've started to unlearn. You've named the wounds. You've softened into your truth. You've remembered your inner child. You've listened to your body. You've stopped performing just to be loved. And maybe, for the first time in a long time, you're not running. You're sitting with yourself. Fully, honestly, kindly. This is the return. Not to a new self, but to your original self. The one who didn't need to earn rest, who didn't apologize for her feelings, who knew she was enough before the world told her otherwise. From here, life won't magically become easy, but it will become yours. You'll recognize when you leave yourself, and you'll know how to come back. You'll stop asking, "What's wrong with me?" and start asking, "What do I need?" This isn't the end, it's a beginning. A quiet revolution inside your own nervous system. And when the ache returns, because it might, you'll know where to look. Not outward, inward, to you. Save this video. Let it be your mirror when you forget. You're not lost. You're coming home. You've just taken the first step back to yourself. In this video, you learned the 5 invisible wounds that silently shape so many women's lives. The overachiever wound, where love is earned, never given. The mask of capability, the performance of strength that hides exhaustion. The forgotten inner child, the part of you that was never allowed to feel freely. The body's grief, how your nervous system holds what words never could. The shapeshifter syndrome, becoming everything for everyone but losing yourself in the process. You also began the return, through presence, through boundaries, through rest, through allowing. If this spoke to something deep in you, if you felt seen, softened, or awakened, then there's more waiting for you. Follow her inner mirror for more videos like this. Each one is a mirror. Each one is a step closer to the version of you who no longer needs to perform, prove, or pretend. You don't have to figure it all out. You just have to keep coming back. We'll be right here when you do.